Hey everyone, this is Mike Del Preti, and you're listening to Context, the podcast where we're talking to industry leaders in real estate about what's changing. So our guest today is Lacey Conway, CEO of Latter Blum. Hi, Lacey.
Hello, happy to be here.
Awesome to have you here, all the way from New Orleans.
All the way.
And enjoying a nice, sunny, snowy day in Boulder.
Yes, gorgeous. And before you hit record, I know I was trying to tell you a little bit about leaving New Orleans right now. It's Mardi Gras time, and it's crazy.
Give us one example of how it's crazy.
I mean, basically the entire city shuts down for about 2.5 weeks. You can't get around. Everybody's drinking. Everybody's having fun. It's just a very interesting time.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you could peel away and join us up here and speak
Absolutely.
to students. That's fantastic. And you brought me some coffee from New Orleans, and I really
did.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, I'm also a coffee lover, and New Orleans does have a wonderful selection of coffees. I know one of them, you may not like chicory, but that was sort of a usual thing in New Orleans to have. Anyway.
I like trying new things. So I guess let's start with coffee. How do you start your day?
I'm usually the first one up in my house, but it's great. It's alone time with my dog and my cat. I get up. I make what I call cowboy coffee. It's just pour over coffee. I grind my beans. Usually I would defer to something organic. I like dark roast. I'll have 1 cup, but I'll make it count. I like to work out in the morning. I'll do that, slowly get dressed, get my kids up, get breakfast for them. And then I feel like this, I do confess, I actually, on my way to work, I'll stop. There's a great coffee shop and I'll pick up a nice coffee. So, yeah.
Okay. At least you're not stopping by Dunkin' Donuts. Sorry, Dave.
But look, I actually went to college in Boston. So I've had my fair share of Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay.
But
Well,
I think I'm more of a Pete's girl if I'm in Boston.
All right. Well, everybody's got their thing. No judgment. It's totally fine. Thank you for the coffee. So give listeners that may not be familiar with the New Orleans real estate scene a quick overview of yourself and Latter Blum.
Yes. New Orleans, Latter Blum was founded in New Orleans in 1916. So we have a very rich history and are very involved, sort of woven into that culture, really. My dad bought Latter Blum in the 80s, so it really was owned by the Latter family for 70 years, but always known to be a family company, really deep roots in New Orleans. And since my dad bought it, I know he actually came more from a commercial background, and he'll always say he couldn't spell residential, but went on a big acquisition spree, and really the company has grown quite a bit ever since. We span from Houston, Texas, into Louisiana, and then the southern coast of Mississippi. Kind of all in, we have about 2,000 agents in Louisiana and about 1,500 in Texas.
Okay. And kind of transaction sales volume?
Wow. So let's see, 23, we did about all in $6 billion.
Okay.
That dropped this year. Not horribly, but not around that number. But yeah, we also, just like many other brokerages that you speak to, have had adventures in mortgage, title, insurance, the whole deal. So yeah, that's us. Home base is New Orleans and have spread really throughout the Gulf Coast.
Okay, so it sounds like, and we were chatting about this beforehand, Latter Blum might be a bit of a legacy broker, as I've labeled before.
Very
so
much.
That means you're kind of sitting around with your head in the sand, not paying attention, and just waiting to go extinct, right?
Oh my God, no. I do feel like there seems to be this illusion that so many traditional and legacy firms just are fumbling in the dark and just don't know what to do and everything else. And I know I really am fortunate to be involved in groups. The Realty Alliance, Craig Cheatham runs it, fabulous. Really a group of 75 independent firms that get together and discuss brokerage. But I have to say, from our perspective, we have made moves. I feel like brokers today have seen this movie. They know what's going on, know that changes need to be made and are making them. For us, one of the biggest changes that we did, in 2015, we acquired a firm in Houston, Texas that is completely polar opposite from the big traditional full service, basically everything but your taxes, transaction fee brokerage based in Houston. So that was a big jump for us.
So that's a low-fee model, Realty Associates.
It is.
So
yes.
This is an example of a legacy brand, a legacy broker.
Yes.
So you went out there and in a different market acquired another business that was totally different.
Yes.
Why?
So we've had, and I think it was a gamble, a calculated one. It wasn't necessarily in our sandbox. We've got Latter Blum operating over here. We're going to go see what happens over here. It's a healthy company. It had good leadership. And I think even from looking back at it now, so much has happened in the space of transaction fee, low fee brokerages, I do feel like we grabbed it at the right time. I certainly feel like it didn't go over well with other firms going, oh my God, I can't believe you've got this low fee brokerage. But we've certainly learned a lot. And there's, for us, and I can admire the simplicity of the business, really to compare, that company has about 10 employees for 1,500 agents. We do have offices, but very small, more meet and greet, one more corporate office, which is 2,500 square feet. And then here's Latter Blum with about 100 employees, 2,000 agents, lots of office space, lots of overhead.
Totally different models. What's
180.
what's something you've learned from operating Realty Associates that you've been able to bring back to Latter and Blum?
I'd bring up just a reminder of trying to get more unified and simplifying some of our processes. To even go back for a little more history, Latter and Blum, as we have grown really in Louisiana, we found ourselves really operating a house of brands. When we bought companies, they kept their name, they kept their identity. We really didn't touch much. They were the crown jewels of those markets, really established, old, great. But that got very complex. You've got 6 websites. You've got, if you're affiliated with luxury, they just want to recognize one brand. So it has pushed us to simplify and streamline.
That's smart. So that was back in 2015, right?
Yes.
And how long have you been CEO of Latter and Blum?
Let's see. 2020 was the year I was named CEO.
Okay.
Yes. I've been in the company, my gosh, I feel probably, summer jobs, working in the mailroom, whatever. Jumped in after graduate school as an agent, worked as an agent for 10 years, then jumped into management, managed one of our offices, and then slowly moved into the executive roles.
Wow. So since 2020, what's something you've learned about real estate that you wish you knew when you started?
I can say I do feel like I went in with my eyes open a bit. It's hard work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hard work. And I think even if I'm joking with my dad, mistakes today hurt a lot more than they did in the past. Just with margin compression, really making smart decisions is so much more important today.
Let's touch on also before we were talking about AI and tech. And I've had some focused discussions actually just last week at this Real Estate Innovation Hub event I was at. I was really trying to drill down and ask people, give me one example where you're using AI in your business. Can you give me an example?
We have kind of on 2 fronts. We operate in the commercial world as well. And I know we've embraced that really fully. We've kind of tried to create our own inputting leases and getting feedback. Just kind of baby steps, but using it for the business. And we actually have some, what we call our young guns, and they actually will go and teach at NEI Global because they've really latched onto it and they're excellent. In the residential world, I think we will fully admit we're not in the tech world. Like I'm not going to hire a whole tech team to do stuff. For the most part, we've partnered with amazing vendors. Like right now, I can think of even Maxa, which is sort of helping with our marketing, very intuitive. AI is built in, and the agents have, I say, baby steps, kind of latched onto that and are using it in their business and saying, okay, I can see the results.
What's one example that you've seen that you're getting signal? Agents are using this.
I just think that when we listen to what agent pain points are, as far as even simple things like, honestly, like their flyers, that just seems to give them a little bit of a boost. And it's one that they'll use and they appreciate.
Oh, that's great. Are there any play areas that you're focused on? And I kind of pause on that because I'm thinking that was a great question that I had last season of the podcast. People are doing their main job, and then there's like this little thing on the side they're kind of experimenting with. Is there anything you're experimenting with?
Well, maybe 2 things come to mind. One kind of larger down the road, just it seems to me at this point in time that there are a couple of exciting things, opportunities, and changes on the horizon. One really centered around the MLS. I find that brokers are waking up to the fact that whether it's through even initiatives like the Broker Public Portal or different one-offs that are really trying to help brokers control their data more, have more of a decision, ask more questions. Well, do we like the rules? Who made them? Do they still work? I can get excited about that because I think, I don't know, even on my way over here, I see that CoStar is going to do the advertising blitz and go crazy. And there's some big stuff coming down the pipe with MLS, how NAR plays into that. Big changes. So I feel like calmly waiting, but observing. I think that's going to be an interesting play area for a lot of brokers.
Okay.
On a smaller note, I'm a broker now in Alabama. We're doing some business, and it's just that interesting time where it's another play box to go, do we need offices? What do we need to support this? So that's a little bit new. We're in there.
So for Alabama, are you
Mhm.
bringing the Latter and Blum model, or are you bringing the Realty Associates model?
It would probably be more of the Latter and Blum model. We've done business quite a bit. We've got a great relationship with some commercial groups that know us as Latter and Blum. But possibly could it be hybrid because the Latter and Blum model is always office, manager, support team. So we're there. We don't have an office, but we're doing business.
Okay. So you're learning. You're taking the best
learning.
of both
Yes.
worlds and giving it a go. It's really interesting. I mean, in my class, we talk a lot about disruption and what to do. It was just last class we were talking about kind of countrywide versus purple bricks in the UK 5, 6, 7 years ago. And it's this age-old question. If you're a big incumbent, what do you do when a disruptor comes up? Because when it's early enough, they're just too small. You're 100 times bigger than them. And then before you know it, they're overtaking you and you're kind of stuck where you are. And there's different ways to go about doing that. And I love the example you gave of going out to purchase Realty Associates. That's a great example of an incumbent saying, you know what, there's this new model. We don't know what's going to happen, but we need to have a chair at the table. We need to have a place here in the game. What can we do about it? And that's, what you did is a really good example of the idea of a challenger brand. Right? We just last class talked about this brand extension versus challenger brand. And this seems like a really fantastic case study of how to do it right.
And I'll say back to what have we learned and where are we today? There seems to be a feeling like the disruptors, the transaction fee brokerages have won, traditional legacy firms are over. So not the case. Even when I look at market share breakout in Louisiana and Houston, the top two in Houston right now, EXP and Compass. I mean, those are like, but although it's gotten very competitive, some firms I hadn't heard of, oh my God, they're here. What are they doing? But say like Side as an example. Okay, traditional firms can go, okay, I understand that. And I think for the most part, and I'll say for me personally, even for our firm, we're like, okay, we can do that. I get it. We've got some big teams that say, we have our own office. We love you guys. We want to sort of be powered by your brand. And we're like, we can do that. So there has been great learning from everything that's gone on, I'd say, in the past 5 years. And I certainly feel like a defender of these legacy firms that, and I think if you looked under the hood of quite a few firms, and I mean, I can think of a few that come to mind, that again, where we chose to, okay, we've got this complete 180 business model in a completely different market. There are some firms that I know that are just experimenting even inside their market. We're going to have both in our market. I haven't done that, but I think there's flexibility. And I think that a lot of traditional brokerages are willing to be flexible and willing to bend. And maybe not even bend's the right word. Just get current. And I think there's been enough time where certainly, we've gotten the memo. You don't need so much office space. Or how are you balancing out that value proposition with everything else?
Who out there is losing, right? Because we're EXP and Compass. They're growing. You're clearly growing. There's winners and losers. There has to be. And you don't have to name anyone in particular, but what type of company or brokerage is losing right now? Because they can't all be winning.
I find, and again, I'm sure it gets very market specific. I think there's a lot of pressure even on some, and I give a lot of credit. We've got some great boutique firms, but there are some firms that are struggling to figure out kind of like, what am I and where do I fit into all this? But I do think that it's good opportunity. I know we've spoken to different firms that may want to become a franchise. I mean, there are a lot of options. But who's losing? And again, I do commend, and I do feel like it's been very interesting to watch EXP's growth. I did listen to Dan Duffy with United. I'm trying to understand all that. Great conversationalist. But it is one of those that it's not that traditional firms are stuck with no power steering.
Mm-hmm.
There's a way to move.
Yeah, interesting. To stick with the power steering analogy, I think this idea of lane assist is actually really interesting when thinking about strategy, right? Do you think you're good at staying in your lane?
I think we've been good about it. I think where I could probably tighten it up a bit. I would argue that even, say, Compass has decided we're going for this type of agent. We don't want to entertain, you just got your license, you don't know what you're doing. We're not fooling with that. I still think that where we are in our markets, it's still appropriate. And when that moment comes where we're like, oh, we're feeling like that doesn't really, it's not really hunting with the agents, we still embrace the new agent. The middle, maybe I'm at 3 million, 4 million. I'm trying to reach for that upper level. So we still entertain all of those brackets of agents.
And you feel like that could be tightened up?
I think it could be tightened up.
Okay.
But I think it's one of those that I truly feel like every brokerage leader probably looks at themselves in the mirror and says, I could tighten up everywhere. There's always a way to, you always have that, do I have my finger on the pulse? Is this what is needed? What do these agents need? So I think maybe even in that, like we're taking a hard look at what we do for training. Training has been one of our pillars, but where could that get tightened up?
Again, on lane assist, we're going to stick with this. Can you give an example of one time you've kind of shifted lanes, either on purpose or accidentally, hit the rumble strip, and then like immediately come back?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
Wow. I'm trying to think of some examples. I always feel as if, because we have got a very long history of providing things and stuff, there's always a feeling with agents, no matter if it's, hey, we've taken this out to upgrade to that or whatever, it always feels like a takeaway. So we've gotten much better at kind of when and how to make those adjustments along the way. Another example that comes to mind, which was a bigger one, which there still might be some agents that kind of think, oh gosh, I wish they hadn't done that. But it's been a real boost for us. In 2020, we kind of touched on that. We operated a house of brands. 2020, that's it. We branded the house. I love 1000 Watt. Brian and Mark are like my favorite people ever. And they were wonderful. We said, all right, we love everybody. We will honor all these traditions, but we need to have more focus. We need to be clear about who we are, what we do, where we do it. And pretty much all Louisiana, Mississippi, Latter Blum.
Okay.
So drop the house of brands.
Yeah.
Which was difficult, but good. We had a huge boost in our website traffic. It was very confusing to the public because we had so many names.
Yeah. All right. So if you could clone yourself, so there's one version of you that's still running Latter and Blum, but if you could clone yourself and then be the CEO of any other company in the real estate space.
Wow.
What company would you choose?
I think it's interesting. I feel as if possibly Compass.
Okay.
Because when I look at Latter and Blum, we have this, you've got this stability, you've got this history, you've got all this good stuff. Yet when I compare even our technology, which is best of the best, there seems to be an image that we can't shake, that you're old and stodgy, you're whatever. So in some way, all this training and all this exercise with Latter and Blum, that seems to be a company where it'd be a great fit to go. I could do that and really focus.
If a benefactor came in and said, hey, Lacey, here's $20 million to invest in your business right now, what would you do with that?
Wow. What would I do with it?
We have the Olipop.
Here goes. Now I'm ready.
Lacey's going to the Olipop. Remember, this podcast not sponsored by Olipop, but it could be, hint, hint.
Oh my God. If I had 20 million to invest in my company, in Latter and Blum, it would probably be a mix. I mean, I don't think I have to blow the 20 in one thing.
Right.
But I do think, even going back to maybe an earlier comment about some opportunity coming down the pike, even for all brokers. I mean, I'd love to see more brokers have an investment in the MLS. I would certainly invest in something technology related that impacted our business, possibly, and I'm still a believer, I'd love to always investing in real estate for the company.
So investing in technology for the business, and that could be M&A.
It would be M&A, yeah.
Acquisition.
Yeah.
You feel like it's important to own the technology?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. I think if you're going to own the technology, you really have to be committed to keeping up employees, finding the sharpest employees. It's always evolving. You've got to be committed to keep committing a lot of capital.
All right. So you're a leader, right? And as a leader in the industry and Latter and Blum, I'm sure you face moments, difficult moments of adversity, success, failure, challenge, right? People pushing back. And I'm sure there's something there where you've learned something. So can you give us an example or a situation where you've learned some sort of particularly impactful lesson that's helped shape your leadership style today?
I'd say we have such a wonderful and diverse agent base. And I do think that anytime something hard has come up, whether it's maybe going back to that when we're branding the house, oh my gosh, I'm very attached to my brand. I think it definitely has been a lesson in learning how to communicate better within your company, being able to forgive people that are emotional and say things that need to be forgiven. But possibly even with one thing that you've mentioned before on your podcast, the importance of sort of the clarity and the transparency of sort of our intentions as a company, even strategy, even things that we don't have the answers to. And I always feel like I could do better at that, but certainly have gotten better at having hard conversations with agents. Sometimes I know as someone who cares very deeply, I can internalize it too much. You lose agents and things happen and it feels like, God, that's hard.
Hmm. In real estate, is there an opinion you hold that not many people agree with?
I think just even what I touched on before, for some, I don't know why I got so caught up in, even with brokers having more of an investment in ownership in the MLS. It's something that they are providing the data for. And I just think it's an interesting thought that doesn't always go over well, but it's one that I feel like is important.
So I feel like we need to scratch that a little bit more. I mean, you keep bringing up brokers and MLS. Like, what's the opportunity? What's the challenge behind that?
Well, I think the challenge, and I think even for most brokers that span over multiple markets, trying to, you're juggling what technology the MLS is deploying, what you're deploying, how that balances out. And I think for a long time, and I think brokers have almost kind of abdicated decision making and whatever just to associations and MLSs. And I just think that's going to change. And I think it should.
Is that around data ownership?
I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's another part?
Kind of back to the who's making the rules and do we agree with it and why? I just think it's an interesting time in real estate that even when you look at changes going on with NAR, there's a lot of opportunity to improve it, but I think it needs to be kind of shaken out and rebuilt.
What's the opportunity with NAR?
Possibly even on this topic, like even with staying in your lane and lane assistance, like I would tell them you probably need to stay more in the lane of being more of an association to help with advocacy or training and drop the MLS lane.
Interesting. Common theme. I mean, data point of two. So Chris Kelly last time, Home Services of America. And now you're saying the same thing. And you've mentioned it a couple times today, focus, not just as it relates to NAR, but in everyone, right? Maybe the past 5 to 10 years with unlimited access to capital and all these growth potential, everybody's just trying to do everything. And where we are right now is a time of focus.
Mm-hmm.
What are we good at? What do we really need to do? When you think about changing the rules, whether it's NAR, MLS, brokerages, I think about different stakeholders. There's consumers, there's brokers, there's associations. Who's left out of the party? Who do you think needs to have a bigger voice? And we haven't heard that voice over the past couple of years.
Well, I think just like you mentioned, it seems as if, and it's a common thing, even with a lot of times the broker will put an agent on a board to make decisions. It's also very hard when there's so many voices trying to make a decision. I just don't know ultimately if it's hard to please everybody, and even with MLS's leveling the playing field, oh no, we need to deploy these tools. Oh my God. It's complex because there are a lot of people, like you're saying, you've just mentioned all these people that are wrapped up in trying to make decisions and trying to move forward.
Is there a tendency to preserve the status quo?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's been an interesting thing in the bit that I've kind of stuck my head into the MLS world and association world. And again, they're lovely people. And I feel like, it's a very mixed experience, though, for brokers, I would say.
When I talk about the U.S. real estate market to someone who doesn't understand it, and that either be my class of students or somebody internationally, it doesn't make sense. They don't get it. They don't understand it. It's not intuitive. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people get caught up in the MLSs. They're like, wait, who are they? What are they doing? Why do they exist?
I would even take it a step further to say, and when I speak to the agents in our company, nobody really understands, and I think our agents in particular, even some managers, that the MLS and the associations are two completely separate things. They get so intertwined that most agents just feel like, I just have to pay the association and because it's just like a cost of doing business. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the more you look into it and dig into it, it becomes just protectionist.
Mm-hmm.
It's like these little fiefdoms that don't want to give up the power and control. And I don't think that is in the best interest of brokers and agents.
What about consumers?
Not really. Like if I think about it, and it all kind of came up because for us, we've got a lot of agents that can sell in different markets. Yet there's this feeling from sort of MLS associations and even some agents, well, Mike, you're from a different area. You can't sell in my area. And it's like, oh my God, like, wait, go tell the seller. Like, I don't think it's in the best interest of the sellers because when you think about it, you're only marketing to a certain zip code area. Like you're in one MLS, it's just going there. I mean, that's why, now that we've had the experience with Zillow, I mean, when you can see everything, it's a much better experience.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I think for consumers, the MLS is certainly a powerful tool, a necessary tool, but I think we need to let go of the grip of these tiny little fiefdoms.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Over the past year, what's something you've learned?
God, that quite honestly, even thinking about going back for the last year, that we can make cuts and we can make changes and it's going to work out and be fine.
Interesting. Example?
Example, and I think so many brokers I know even right when COVID hit, you make that your emergency plans. Oh my gosh. Taking back office space, sharpening up and kind of getting more focus on, what tools do we really need? What are we using? We can make those changes. And I feel like it's been, you're always so scared to, okay, look, we've consolidated offices. We did a wonderful acquisition in 2019 going into 2020. It was our largest competitor in New Orleans, another family-owned brokerage. They did about $1 billion in sales volume. We had kind of competed in parallel paths for so long, and it was just great to come together and say, hey, we're going to do this as one. But amazing, fourth generation company, that was a lot. So coming off of basically taking on their people and their stuff, we had a decent amount of doubling down in places. And it's always the fear of, man, whether they had to move into our house, we had to move into their house. Making those changes can feel very scary, but we've been able to do it. We've been able to blend. So we just kind of take a breath and say, okay, we've learned that we can do this and we can make these changes.
Yeah. So you've listened to a couple episodes of this podcast, right?
Yes.
What's something you've learned?
That, quite honestly, that there are so many intelligent and interesting people in this industry. For starters, I do think, though, and maybe we touched on it, that we've kind of focused on this, like, who's the winner and who's the loser and everything else, and what's winning and everything. In my opinion, even listening to, God, these bright minds that are running huge organizations, there's pressure on both models. You speak to Chris Kelly about, there's a really nice kind of restraint and calculated movement, But certainly I'm familiar even more from that standpoint about the pressures with the legacy firms. But then for an EXP or any other company, a United, there's a pressure to grow. There's a pressure to perform, maybe unlike one that I have, that I can look at my dad and we can, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. There isn't one in my mind right now, one particular model that is the clear. You can see growth in certainly the transaction fee space, but not to say both have their challenges.
Yeah, a variety of valid models. There's not one size fits all. There's not one type of company that's going to win. Somebody's got to lose. At the end, somebody has to, right? It's a zero-sum game here. But perhaps it's more about the qualities of the winners, more agile with the financial resources, able to make decisions quick, a track record of making good decisions generally. Those are the companies, the ones that can kind of, I'm thinking of a wrestler or fighter, somebody who's kind of loose on their feet, right?
Yes.
Your body's fluid and you're ready for whatever happens as opposed to just rigidity.
Yes.
And if you're rigid, if somebody hits you, you're just going to shatter. Whereas you can get hit and kind of react and change. Awesome. That's about it for time. Any closing thoughts you want to share?
That I'm thrilled to be here and that I think listening to your podcast is wonderful and I hope you keep doing it.
Thanks.
I certainly enjoy your research and all your insights.
Well, thanks, Lacey. I really appreciate that. And yeah, plan to keep doing the podcast. We've got a whole bunch of awesome guests that'll be coming up the rest of this semester/season. So thanks again for joining. I'm Mike Del Prete. You've been listening to Context. If you want to look into more of my research or more podcast episodes, good place to start would be my website, mikedp.com. And we'll catch you all next time. Thank you.